Сегодня мы поговорим по теме, которая становится все более горячей. По-английски, если это перевести, это как бы бреши, это как с Sony бывало, да? Ну, по-русски мы это назвали компрометация крупных инфраструктур. Собственно,
So we are discussing a topic that's not on the wall. Everyone believes they are protected. They buy very many tools for security, and nothing will ever happen to them. Sometimes ideal cases when people say, nothing may happen to this system because it's certified by the regulators. But in real life, we see
данные
that
подходы работают не всегда.
such approaches are erroneous.
Для того, чтобы начать, мы бы хотели
For a
узнать
start, we'd like to find out,
мнение зала по
to
нескольким
learn
вопросам,
your
которые
opinion
были анонсированы
on
на
several
сайте
topics
в
that had
качестве
been
вводной
announced
для данного круглого
on a
стола.
website as the introductory questionnaire for this round table.
Первый
So,
вопрос
the
для
first
зала.
question.
Да? То есть провокационных вопросов не будет, но вот на эти вопросы просьба
We shall have
ответить.
no provocative
Как
questions, but
владельцы
please reply.
инфраструктур
How will
обнаруживают, что они взломаны?
the owners discover
Ну,
their
и
infrastructure has been
переводы,
hacked?
да, или ожидания, да, кто я взломан, используя шестое
So you
чувство,
see, sixth sense,
иногда
C or
информирует
D.
вендор, предлагая новые продукты.
Вообще в зале много людей, которые занимаются именно детектом.
So are there many people who detect and protect in the organization? Raise your hands.
И
So do we have the defense army here? Yeah, like 10%. So people, for those who raised your hands, how do you detect your
выберите из этих
intrusions?
опций
Could you
A,
please
B,
select
C
A,
или
B,
D.
C, or D?
Из новостей. Ну, я, значит, ближе к этому.
D, I guess.
Есть еще варианты, или все узнают из новостей?
So from the news or
Сия.
any
Yeah.
other option?
Вот это интеграция.
That's integration.
Ну, понятно. То есть каждый узнает. А шестым чувством никто
And what
не
about the
чувствовал?
sixth
Там, может
sense?
быть,
Have you
рука,
ever
ладонь
felt
как-то там
maybe your
потеет.
palm gets sweaty or the hair stands on your
Ну,
neck?
так, следующий вопрос. Что же происходит, когда они
So, the next
выявляют
question,
атаку?
what
Что же
happens
происходит? Вот вы
when you
поняли,
know
что
there's
вас
an
взломали.
attack?
Вот как
So,
вы думаете,
you understand
какие
you've been
чувства
hacked.
были у людей,
What's your
которые
feeling?
защищали инфраструктуру типа Sony, когда они узнали, что
What
инфраструктура взломана?
do you think Sony people felt when they learned that their infrastructure has been
Собственно, кто говорит А?
Who says A?
Кто говорит Б?
None. Who says B?
Пиво все пьют, да? Ну, запоют.
B is a drinking bout. So when a person keeps drinking for days and cannot stop, that's B. So first you take off the stress and then you make a proper decision. So call a friend.
Понятно, то есть у нас есть выбор в виде галочек, а не кружочек.
Мама профессор математики.
So my mom is math professor.
Окей. Кого вы информируете об инциденте?
So
Кто-нибудь
who
звонил или писал
do you go to
Брайану
with the
Крепсу в
instance?
Twitter?
Have you ever wrote to Brian Krebs on
У
Twitter?
кого-то возникает ощущение, что зачем информировать, это будет...
So have you got a feeling? So why inform? Because it will drop your KPI and bonuses will never be paid out to you.
Третий вопрос, он
And the third question,
это некоторая статистика, сколько
that's statistic.
атакующие
How many days the attacker can be in the system until he is fixed. So the fourth is, well, you know, here happened, you know, this thing happened. That's number D. So no one wants to talk to Brian. Brian knows it.
Выгрузить сэмпл на
A, like, upload sample to virus site.
Позвонить или пообщаться с Брайаном и выгрузить на
So call
Virus
VirusTotal
эквивалентным.
is equivalent. Corporate mail.
Да. Ну, хорошо. То есть я думаю, вариант С
So I believe C
для многих, но они в этом не
is best for
сознаются.
many, but they will never confess.
Вот давайте перейдем к серьезной части доклада.
So let's go to more serious parts. Further and I, we go back a long way. We have been speaking together at the last 4 PhD forums, and we can look at the incidents as people who help when something happens. Further is now studying
Девятый год уже студент.
at his university. It's my 9th year in the university, and I monitor the academic networks.
Интересный момент, что
What's interesting is that
Тайвань является
Taiwan is one of the
объектом для
best sites
через море.
for a country,
Есть интересная активность, сэмплы.
and through the sea and the interesting activity and samples that we get first, and then they go to Russia.
Теперь уже с 9 мая не появляется официально.
So no, not since 9th of May,
Да.
not officially.
Как договорились.
Now we have come to terms. And then I have more academic research interests. For instance, in our academic networks, we have departments. We do not notify those that we detect as victims. We rather make statistics. So they try to understand how it got to you across the sea. So these are the 2 people that you could expect to see, because I was announced, but we have a surprise here. We gathered here prominent experts on both sides of the ocean. Allow me to introduce Kevin Williams from Team Kimru. Kevin.
Hi there. So Kevin Williams with a small internet security company called TC UK in
Меня
London.
зовут Кевин Уиллимс из небольшой компании TC UK в Лондоне, 25 лет уже. Я был офицером служб обеспечения обеспечения порядка и занимался различными обеспечением исполнения закона National Crime Agency, который дает международный реагирует на нарушение контрактов. Недавно начал работать в небольшой компании Team Comrie. Она работает в Уэльсе. Организация была основана для того, чтобы делать коммерческие предложения. То есть мы строим нашу инфраструктуру через продажу коммерческих продуктов. Но 80% нашего времени это, опять же, понимание сетевого трафика и, опять же, атаки сервиса. И почему мы, то, что называется, даем вот эти отзывы give back, мы делимся. Это позволяет людям принимать решения, как они управляют своей собственной страной.
Алексей Кузьмин из Société Générale из Франции.
Alexei Kuzmin from Société Générale from France.
Спасибо, Володя, за приглашение.
Yeah, thank you for your invitation. So, I'm here on behalf of third team, Société Générale, which is in charge of the incidents and response incidents to do with information security and sometimes technical infrastructure as well. And this activity is not restricted by France only, so we have large sites in Russia. And we have very many incidents to brainstorm for the group with over 170,000 people of permanent members, permanently working on 4 continents. And so there is an opportunity to see directly, to consider and handle different types of incidents. And in this respect, I would like to share with you some experience some funny things as long as it is possible, or possible to call it funny. So why those two pictures? So let me give you an impression how we see the people who work with incidents. Something in between, well, something important happened. Yesterday, I got DDoS exploit kit 0-day hyper attack. So please have a look, because I clicked 3 times, but not 4. Should be all right. But please, I'm sending you just in case. So after 80 forwards inside the company, finally it will land on your team, and you are stuck with that, with investigating and learn new things. And in a stress-free mode, you have to respond just like Mr. Winston Wolfe, my favorite character who solves problems. That's what we are. We are trying to solve problems as that we can. And John, who was presenting here on the use of compromising indicators, how do you discover demands? Please speak closer to the mic.
Yes. My name is John Bambenek. I own my own firm, Bambenek Consulting, where I do forensic work and produce threat intelligence. Similar to Kevin, I try to give back as much as I can to the community so that organizations can protect themselves. I don't make any money from that, but it's just my way of giving back so that threats are less prominent. And one of the other things that I do is that I generally set up working groups to deal with specific cybercrime threats to hopefully end in prosecution, but at least ending
могут быть расследованы, наказаны, ну, в общем, конкретные вещи.
Да, ну и в рамках структуризации, собственно, нашей презентации мы решили...
And we decided to appoint, so-called, and develop an incident response life cycle that covers all the stages that you see in this structure. And we shall be moving from preparation to lessons learned, and then especially focusing on the reverse step to preparation. So complete full cycle to respond to new threats and new risks for large infrastructures. So responding to incidents is like your renovation of your apartment. You can suspend, but you can never stop completely. So that's our detailed, kind of more granular digging down, drilling down. So that's a horrible structure. That's how you have to work, because the devil is in the detail as usual. Each stage is multifaceted, from preparation to detection to response to incidents. So you can use a large number of various tools. You can see your internal indicators. So, for instance, John has public feed that you can get free of charge, download, and try to find something in your network. There are so many options. And just like the way you work at each step in this cycle. So we decided to arrange this round table without any special homework to do, but to consider several cases that you can come across in real life, and tell you some cases, real stories, how it happened. And the first chapter, when something, when somebody hurts you and then ask money for repair, cryptology, like DDoS attacks, and then people ask money from you to stop them. And I believe Kevin, but please Kevin can talk to us about it, but please approach the mic closer to the mic. I can't hear you.
recently is DDoS attacks with ransom demands. So the way that this is happening at the moment is your company will be hit with a denial of service attack and you'll be taken offline for 1 hour. You then get the criminals making contact with you and they make a ransom demand, usually in bitcoins, and they'll leave it a while, and if you don't make the payment, they hit you again. And this process keeps going until such time as you pay up. And it's really, really difficult because the attacks are always proxied through victim boxes that are part of botnets. So often the response is just simply paying the money.
Один из интересных контингентов,
So one of the very interesting type of a victim for DDoS attack. So I don't know if it's popular in Russia, but Taiwan and China, it is quite popular. So there is a special group of companies who specialize in gambling. Gambling in China and in Taiwan are illegal. So there are some zones, restricted zones, where you can do that, but it's still by law it's banned, it's illegal. But the political situation and the lack of cooperation between the police forces of continental China and Taiwan, there are some companies, many companies who arrange gambling services for you, and they're hosted in Taiwan and service clients in China and vice versa, the other way around. So DDoS, in this case, says the business is illegal if someone DDoSes you, so you cannot go to police, you cannot turn to the enforcement agencies. So a very interesting approach and response to DDoS attacks have appeared. For instance, your in-house processing, like you rent a center, DDoS a competitor, or rent a hacker who will go and crash the DDoS system. So this response to threats is interesting. We can discuss it in the proactive defense chapter, so proactive reaction. But in gambling context, I don't know. What about Russia? Do you have that in Russia? Well, yes. No names. Red eye. But the next question is hacktivists. And the question, is they claim what they do and what they get as a result. Because very often lately we have seen dumps of passwords of large mail services, Western or Russian, but analyzing those passwords, like Sony Pictures, is if you compare to other dumps, so you realize that 50, 60, 70% or sometimes more of passwords had been published before on other sources. So we get a feeling that people either try to use some other people's glory or show more that they have done.
At the moment, across the globe, is the theft of health data. I don't think anybody's really come up with a reason why this is happening, but certainly over in the States, there's a large number of health organizations having their data stolen. One of the conclusions could be that the reason this is happening is that they're joining together the data that's within those records with some of the financial data. And the reason we think that they might be doing that is a lot of personal information about you that's held in the health records might form part of your security questions. So it could be that your family's names are there, your previous addresses. So there's a bit of a debate going on at the moment as to just why this is happening.
IRS tax refunds, I think that's probably one of the monetization schemes of the data.
Well, yeah, just like you said, that there's every April 15th, and at least in the United States, that's when consumers have to file their tax returns. And usually starting in January, we start seeing a lot of IRS, which is our tax agency related campaigns to steal tax refunds. And, you know, our federal government just hasn't really figured out how to prevent somebody filing a false tax refund, getting your money, and then you file your tax return, and they say, hey, you already got a refund, sorry.
What was really interesting was listening to the first talk yesterday, the government guys, saying that your health records are held in foreign countries. I found that really strange. I'd want that in my country with my people protecting it. I found it a little bit difficult to understand why you would want to keep your health records in other countries.
I think under U.S. law, we're pretty heavily regulated to prevent U.S. health records from being overseas. At least every organization I work with that had health records are like, does not cross national boundaries.
So, и еще одно замечание по поводу тех.
And one more comment about the password dumps. If we see that they belong to the prominent, big mailing system, we see that passwords may not match the security requirements of such systems. So out of 1 million passwords that they upload, so 80% may refer to absolutely third forums where the mailbox was used for registration. Have you ever found your passwords in such dumps? Yep. Yes, I did. I have. So my personal habit, turn on his mic, please. Thank you. Thank you. At least I know you hear me. So I use a different group for password. For the password that I saw in a dump, I saw that a forum was hacked where I registered that just in case, just for fun. And the third question is responding to the global incidents in the context of cybercrime. So botnets, banking accounts, details, when there are so many victims and they're distributed across countries, and the infrastructure of the attackers is distributed as well and keeps changing. So I would like to ask you about experience, Western teams in responding to such threats.
Things that was always a challenge was working with countries that you don't currently have arrangements with. So as it stands today, the UK doesn't have any formal relationships in legislation with Russia. I found that really, really difficult to take forward investigations. So all the criminals would do, whether they started in China, whether they started in Taiwan, or anywhere in the world, they would always jump through a country that we had difficulty with, so Russia being one of them. They would also misuse the infrastructure in places like China, or they would look for bulletproof hosters where they were organisations that were either protected or wouldn't work with law enforcement. So it's common in everything that I've ever dealt with for it to jump across countries.
So are there any success stories when you actually succeeded in such incidents, arrested someone?
Yeah, so I think the way forward, so I've told you what the problem is definitely working cert to cert. So one of the things that I found in the community is, I'll come here, I'll talk to like-minded people, we'll pick up cards and we'll share them. We did a piece of work with a banking Trojan a couple of years back now called Game Over Zeus. We worked the case up with all the countries who were talking to each other at that time. One of the things that we discovered.
Я объясню, собственно.
Allow me to comment. I guess you saw the $3 million announcement at the FBI website, the information leading to an arrest of a Russian hacker. So that's the case in point.
What they did was they used a variety of methods to deliver the malware. So some of it was email, some of it was drive-by. They created an infrastructure that controlled the botnets that were then created, which sat in many different countries. They used a peer-to-peer methodology for the command and control. So it meant if we took normal law enforcement response, whereby if you can't get to the bad guy, you just take down the infrastructure, this wasn't going to work because a lot of the peers would just simply recreate themselves or morph again. Part of that infrastructure was here in Russia. We had no formal relationship to be able to start those conversations. So we did what we did, which was we reached out to the community, we reached out to people that we knew worked in certs, who could then go and speak to the private companies that were providing the hosting. And that was a really positive thing, because it meant that we were able to almost eradicate the infrastructure and also identify the criminals. What was interesting, though, is the approach that the FBI has taken, and now the $3 million ransom demand. So if anybody wants to make $3 million, hey, look at the FBI's website and see if you can find this guy.
Я смотрю, несколько людей в зале улыбаются.
Some people are smiling, so they have a good chance to get rich if they're smiling. So maybe the contacts in Napa, someone can forward them. And so we have question number 4. Very interesting question. It's detection and incident response in short lifespan events. And so this is the infrastructure that is set up for a short period of time, and after that, it just is dismantled. No one, it's not important what was before. What's important was that the event should have taken place. For example, Olympic Games and exhibitions, fairs, whatever. So then quickly removed. Kevin, would you like to comment on how it was in London? Yes, maybe to follow up on that.
So the way in which we dealt with the response to the Olympics was there were two sides to the business. There was the commercial companies who set up the infrastructure, and they ran their own CERT, or their own equivalent, the Technical Operations Centre. And we ran a second centre which had all the government agencies. So we were the cops, so if anybody needed arresting, we were in the room. GCHQ, MI5, Military of Defence, and we all sat in the same room. And we spent months beforehand training on exercises so that we understood that when we dealt with an incident, how would people normally react, but then coming to a decision about how we would react. One of the interesting things that we learned was that the approach that's taken on the majority of the Olympics is, first of all, they set up legislation. The legislation stops websites being set up to fake websites for selling tickets and selling shirts and memorabilia. So that was a great thing. And also, that's happened in every other country where the Olympics have been set up. So if you find a website that's hosting stolen or fake Olympic tickets, you can just reach out to that country. And they will probably have the legislation in place. The other thing about having the two teams working together, there was constant communication that I'd never seen before between industry and the government side. When it actually came towards the start-up of the Olympics, this happens in most major events, is they disconnect everything from the internet. There is no connectivity to the important machines, so the timing machines, whether it's the coaches that are going to pick up the athletes and move them about, the hotel rooms, it all works on a completely separate system. And what that also means is it reduces the amount of incidents that are running during the day that you would pick up, that you would normally have on any system. But that level of cooperation delivered a successful games. We did have an incident at the beginning which was reported in a couple of newspapers, and there was a threat to the electricity system. It was a hacktivist who was looking to try and switch the electricity off just at the point when people around the globe were watching the opening event. One of the things that we learned from that was you need to not only understand how all the infrastructure works, but how all the supply chains leading to that as well. And on this occasion, the attack was suspected. It didn't actually take place. The guy we thought who was going to carry out the attack was arrested. He was going for a electrical generator that sat outside of the ring of steel around our protection. So it's a lesson to be learned. But even when you lock down everything that you can reach, these guys, they'll just look at what else can they do. Can they switch the water off? Can they switch the electricity off to also cause you harm?
Ну, то есть, по сути, против взлома нет приема, когда все тонкости и хитрые механизмы защиты.
So if all the mechanisms of protection are in place, so then the bad guys, they look for other ways. But so their ways is limited if everything is secured and guaranteed. So that's why on the one hand, so there is so the Olympics in Russia, the political situation was tense. and the people want to send their message. But there is another side to this challenge. Many financial, legal, and not very legal schemes that can be monetized at such events. So then the system was, so when they stake, a system of stakes at the Olympics, so and then a way to manipulate the results of the game, so that can certainly get a lot of material gains for this so illegal persons or companies, and the threats for infrastructural threats. So when we talk about ACTP components available through internet, and the ACTP components available through internet, and so then there are people who who work with corporate systems, industrial systems. On one hand, so they're not experts on security. On the other hand, so there is this feeling that so then you have your own IT guy inside the system, and so then there will be no threats if he's effective. But when we do do a great deal of research, analysis of the traffic, plus public resources like H2 and some other resources. We check them for the presence of industrial systems in internet, and we've noticed that so those industrial systems they have an opportunity to put in a SIM card, a GPRS, because many industrial systems are far away from their parent offices, wireless GPRS connection. So the best solution to provide communication between the gadget and the head office, and the telco, and there are telcos that provide an IP address to GPRS, and this is it. And if you all of a sudden can if you can scan and get to type A, then you have a remote access to manage for example, to work a pump, for example, or water pump. So if this device crashes, then it will be the lowering of the physical protection, and people will be unhappy without water. Then specifics of incidents in financial institutions. Alexei has a great deal of experience in financial institutions, as you may guess. So there are lots of incidents occur from different areas of IT. Security, they occur all the time. So for example, let me give an example of something that would be very telling. And so we spoke about root nets. Let me talk about root nets that target the users and the banking systems of remote electronic banking services. What's our position here within the framework of the financial group? If if there is bootnet, then the trick is just to catch and neutralize this bootnet. That's what ordinary people think. To catch bootnet and to arrest him, we have a different position because we have different opportunities. We cannot possibly launch a tactical, nuclear charge, and to kill the entire house, blow up the entire region. So because now we neutralize the implications of those utilities used by cyber criminals, implications, consequences. That's the idea. A top BARM approach. So as you neutralize the threat, we say bar month approach. What we do, we're trying just to trace bots and to see what's happening in companies, botnets that target our users. And for this, by default, we have the best spam trap that the the banking office can have. So then you have the database of our clients. So we try to launch the sufficient number of programs, of IT programs for our clients, so that they should know where to turn if they find something untoward, if they feel that they are infected. And if the client agrees to examine, to have his computer examined by our specialists, so we send our specialists, detail our specialists who do the forensic image of the computer in our lab, and then we virtualize this if it's possible, if malware allows to virtualize this image, and thus they accumulate the database of working, functioning, running bots of different companies and different types, so then botnet builders, and we have a chance to see what new targets appear in malware files appear, so in decoding decoding of these files, and thus we provide this information to the people who are involved in the banking infrastructure, and then they follow up on it, and so they start tracking down, tracing those. What I'm telling you, to give an idea that banks they do not hope on any outside providers of information. They do not rely on them, and they try to do what they can within their own competence and within their power to protect their clients, and they are very active on that account. And so you've seen in many countries, so there are some figures about the presence, and 0 days, sometimes it happens, but why should you suspend your 0 day if there are mistakes? But another very interesting subject is a proactive defense, very interesting subject matter. So when they crack, they try to hack you and you hack them. And so this way they try to reboot us, but we get only stronger. So to what extent it is ethical and legal, and how to vindicate yourself, to take revenge. So one guy from Luxembourg, so he was trying to learn everything about host machines in Hong Kong, and he published what he found. So some data that he found on Hong Kong computers were owned by some companies in Taiwan. So the data was taken out via those computers and then the record became public domain, and then security guys came, and if anyone just writes an official complaint that you've been compromised, so then we'll have to take legal action against them, and so enforcement people came, and this is legal or illegal. So then there's the different scenarios play out. So legality, the issue of legality is very high on the agenda, and it's resolved, and it's addressed by different countries in different.
I think that concept of kind of unauthorized attacks, even against criminal actors, just generally viewed as illegal. So there are people who do it anyway, because at a certain point, if you're a criminal, you're not going to call. But certain nations may respond poorly. So if I, as a U.S. citizen, were attacking Russian assets belonging to a criminal actor, the Russian Federation may have something to say about that, even though I'm going after a criminal actor. But there's also the concern of ethics, is that a lot of criminal networks rely on compromised infrastructure. So taking destructive action against a compromised infrastructure is that, yeah, you're hitting a criminal actor, but you're hitting an innocent third party too. And there's been kind of several high-profile events where even using legal means of taking down more compromised infrastructure, or infrastructure used by bad actors but has good use, has had some very bad consequences.
Один как бы такой.
So one some advice. What's legal as a method to work to deal with cyber criminals? So some advice. Since we cannot DDoS those who DDoS us, and we cannot just symmetrically retaliate because of business ethics and because we cannot do, otherwise we'll be like them. So, but what else? Still, so there are many instances we can just track down the guy who is involved in this accident and then contact him and unofficially to talk to him by email. And so we know who you are and know what you are up to. So you know what you are doing, and we suggest you stop because you're not doing something that is good. And it's strange because not in 100% cases, but sometimes it works. So people say, oh, yes, okay, well, I promise I will be a good boy. I won't do that again. And then, so to retaliate against the same target, and it is stupid. And in majority of cases, so there is always legal remedy or just talking to the guy and staying within, to be ethical and legal, and staying on the legal side of the law. And we can see good examples. So one of the aspects of how you can respond to the incidents. So because some companies don't care, and so whether they've been hacked or they have not been hacked, they just don't care. But some care, and so that's why. So, for example, so then the media community is a good lever to put pressure on those, and so to respond to this incidents. So this screenshot shows that's the way a website of one of friendly countries looked like, and so it looked like some time ago. So then, as the government site. Taken from one of the archives, xatrix.org. And the question is, when is it a good time to go public with the breach in your organization? So when we should just talk to the media about that. So should we talk to the media? At what point we should talk to the media about that?
This is from working in law enforcement and dealing with a number of investigations with companies, but also from the Olympics, is be on the front foot. People are going to find out that you've been hacked. Now, whether that's because you've got a whistleblower inside your company who speaks to a newspaper, or whether it's because you work in the regulated market where you have to tell a government department, there's a whole bunch of ways that this is going to come out. So my recommendation is take a grip of it, but you need to do this in advance. You need to have a plan about how you're going to approach this so that you can take consideration of the board if you're working for a company, you can take advice from the government, you can take advice from your legal advisors ahead of anything happening. This means then that when you stand up, there is only a single message. You have a single message of truth, and the way in which you present it is then at your choice. You're not being hounded by the media to give a response. It also works really well if you've got a talking head. I've seen companies where they've got one individual who's senior within the organisation who wants to be that talking head. The problem is if that person doesn't understand the technology, it defeats the problem because they look an idiot. Because they get asked highly technical questions and can't answer it, then you lose what you were trying to do, which was protect your reputation. So I would always recommend that you think about what those messages look like before you're attacked. Because trust me, this always happens on a weekend, on a Friday, on a public holiday when you can't get hold of people. The other thing I would have also is some messages in your head that you want to say which are positive. Because at this time, everything is seen as negative. So have in your back pocket whether or not you're going to offer free antivirus to those people affected, whether you're going to offer a package where if there are people who've had their data stolen, are you going to offer to pay for a credit reference company to look after them in the future. Also, it really works well if, in advance of something like this, you've educated everyone about how you're going to deal with that, but also educate your staff about how to protect themselves anyway. So think about what cyber hygiene you'd want as a company and make sure everyone within the company knows about that. It also helps if you have some sort of frequently asked questions prepped in advance as well, because again, it's cleared through your press office, it's cleared through your legal, because one of the things you don't want to do when you're putting your messages out is to give information which may be used against you in any civil findings. So this is all about protecting your reputation, but also protecting your share price. So that didn't work for the Gloucester Council. So the Gloucester Council were a small government department, regionally based in the UK. One of their seniors had her Facebook and Twitter account taken over. The problem with that was she denied it happened. So the posting you see up there was the guy from Anonymous who took over her site. And even though he was posting to her site, she was still denying that she'd been hacked. He then moved on and she used the same password for her Twitter and Facebook accounts to her government accounts. He then moved into the mail server of the council as well. And by this point, they were still denying anything was happening, and they were getting followed around. The press was hitting her at her front door. They were following her around during the day. It made it completely intolerable, but they just looked stupid because you could see the press were running stories every day. So taking that proactive approach really has a great way forward. Ultimately, what happened was they didn't know how far into their systems this guy had got, so they ended up having to shut the whole council down. It meant they had to send everyone home. It meant that they stopped making payments, so there was a whole variety of benefits that were being paid, that should have been paid out. So the public lost as well, because when they shut the system down, they shut the whole thing down, and that was to do the incident response. So by taking a really negative